It is 7:49, approaching 7:50 here on this Friday morning wake-up call. Time for Friday with the Fuzz. I'll toss it right over to Mr. Michael Greene.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, we're a little short today of time, so we'll get right in. First of all, welcome into the studio on his birthday.
Yeah.
Yes. Elgin Chief of Police Jeff Swoboda. Yeah, this is a I think in what, the 5 whatever years or whatever that we've done this, 4 years. First time you might have been here on your birthday. Maybe?
Is it?
Maybe,
yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'll have to go back and consult my calendar. I track every day you do.
A lot of times that we, we
kind
of maybe try to get out of town or something around our birthdays. So my wife and I. So
yeah, that's good.
But we're in town because we're going to be spending the evening at the Centro Gala. So that's the exciting dinner that my wife and I have planned. We're going to be Centro de Informacion's having their annual gala tonight, and so that's where we'll be having dinner.
25. That's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's a good age, right?
A couple of things. It's a great age. I'd go back anytime. We go back to earlier this, late last week, I guess. There was an arrest made for a suspect that I guess you had just a regular patrol officer out doing some radar enforcement, and lo and behold, here comes a car going, I don't want to say, I mean, not particularly fast. It's not like he was doubled the speed limit, but 64 and a 50, right? Not that I would ever,
over the speed limit.
Not that I never hit that. I always set it around 8. Anyway, for the highways anyway. Right. And when the officer pulls out, puts on the lights, instead of slowing down and pulling over, speeds up. Always, uh-oh. First thing in your mind as an officer when somebody does immediately pull over, what are some of the things that might go through your mind before we kind of get into what happened here? Because, I mean, he hit a garage, he hit a car, he hit,
Yeah, this one's a little different because the officer, it took a little time for the officer to get up to speed and get out into traffic, and so he actually kind of lost him early on. But generally speaking, yeah, as soon as you put on your lights, even before you put on your lights, you're seeing how many people are in the car, what the driver's doing exactly. Is he talking on the phone, not paying attention, or is he looking up in his? Because you can tell when somebody's looking up in their rearview mirror, and is he looking at that? Is he starting to do some movements within the car? Reaching under the seat, reaching around, doing. Also you see a lot of people do the grab for the shoulder, which is the quick seatbelt, right? Yeah. And so just just being observant what's going on. Once then you turn on the lights, then again you continue to watch that, and if the person then starts making. Because if the person sees you and doesn't pull over immediately, obviously right then okay, something's going on here. Why isn't he looking over? Some people are being very friendly and trying to get up to a side street to get it off to make it safe. But unless there's a side street right there, we tell people just pull over. The officer will make it safe and then direct you where to go. Because some people will keep driving. Well, I was trying to find I was trying to get off Randall Road, but unfortunately you drove for 2 more miles with me behind you with your lights and sirens on. So you kind of get a feel for that. Is it a person just waving that they see you and they're trying to get over? Or again, if it's a person that's taken off, then officer has a lot of decisions to make very quickly. What am I stopping this person for? What do I think is going on here? What time of day is it? What's the traffic look like? What's the weather conditions? All of these things are
go in,
right.
Almost, instantaneous, right? They're just all these things are just processing quickly.
Absolutely. So officers will get on the air pretty quickly and say, I'm trying to stop a vehicle. It's not stopping right now. Supervisors will generally then get on as well and. What's the speed? What's going on? Other officers, try to come into the area. Sometimes people are just looking for a spot to kind of dump their car. If they know they're going to run on us, they'll wait till they'll get to a spot where they can just pull it over, jump out, and take off running. So all these things are going on. So yeah, that's generally what officers are doing. Is they're going to. We have a very a policy within the police department that's. Pretty strict with pursuits and at what point are we going to pursue and not pursue, because they get to be very dangerous, and so we don't want to add to the danger of a situation, and especially if we know the license plate and who's driving, and if it's for a minor issue, somebody who knows they want it on a warrant.
I think about that issue at the Walmart, where that guy struck an officer in the parking lot too, and then you continue the chase, but then called it off, and he was caught up in like Kenosha County or something like that. So
yeah, exactly. And so that was one that they hit some officers, but then by then we knew who they were and where and so at some point, yeah, you just have to weigh the risk versus the reward and of catching somebody, getting them off the street. Obviously, there's somebody in the car that doesn't want to be there. Take it to the extreme. You got a kidnapping and something's going to well, then you got to make decisions right then. Do we let this person go, or continue? Is it worth the risk of continuing to chase them?
Well, and as you had alluded to in this case, it took the officer a minute because he was sitting still, not maybe a minute, but it took a moment or so, and for the officer to kind of get up to speed. And by that point, got to an intersection and wasn't sure where the guy had gone, and then thankfully he knocked out a bunch of power to Elgin by hitting a comment pole.
Yeah.
And I hate to laugh about it, but the officer then saw an electricity spark or flash or something, and maybe over here, right?
Well,
power deduction,
right? Well, the interesting thing is the
cross in front of him again.
Where the transformer blew from the power being struck was actually on the opposite side of Randall Road.
Oh, okay.
And so the officer looked one way, saw a flash of light, and said, "Okay, what is this?" But then looked and saw the car crossing in front, heading towards the flash of light. So it was strange, but then recognized it was that car with damage on it. The car then continued around the corner, hit a garage, at one point hit another car. Person in that other car got injured. So a lot of stuff going on. The officer maintained his composure. We got out there, we got a perimeter set up, and we were eventually able to take the person into custody. So it was a scene off on Randall Road that brought out a lot of people and a lot of questions, and we were ultimately able to take the person into custody.
Was it, in reading, what the charges were, this gentleman, last name was Kazada. I don't have the first name here in front of me immediately. It's in the press release, but the charges, aggravated fleeing and eluding, resulting in bodily injury, 2 counts of aggravated fleeing and eluding with property damage, leaving the scene of an injury accident, resisting arrest, driving while license suspended, leaving the scene of an accident involving damage to a vehicle. I kind of was waiting for why was he running? Other than maybe the driving while suspended. Was there more to it than that, or does that appear at this point? I know it's still a case that's active, but
yeah, we don't know. I don't think we know. I'm not doing the investigation, so at the time that we put the press release out, and again, not talking about this case, but generally when people run, sometimes it's about a minor thing, about a license issue that's going on. Other times there's some type of contraband in the car that they don't want to get caught with. Other times, people are intoxicated. So there's a bunch of reasons why people unfortunately run. In fact, there's a TV show out there, isn't it, called Why I Ran or something like that. And they go back and interview people that ran from the police, and they show them the video of them running.
They're usually pretty.
They say, "Why did I do that? Dumb
ridiculous
move.
reasons.
I just want to get home for whatever reason." And so people run for many reasons, and I don't know why in this one, but and it was a bad choice. It always is a bad choice, and it ends up costing the person many more charges and much more time in jail. If in fact there would have been any time in the first place, if it's just a license violation.
Yeah, the driver of that second vehicle, in the press at the point of the press release, said transported to a local hospital with minor injuries. Do you know any more about that? It sounds like it was fairly minor.
Yeah, so. I don't. I just know it wasn't. We usually characterize them as life-threatening or non-life-threatening, and then once it's minor injuries, that could be anything. You could say minor injuries, but a person that has a broken leg, and I'm not sure in this case that's what it is in hell, has to be off work for 6 months. It's not
How
very
minor is it?
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
So when we have these crashes, and then also a person that has damage to their car, and now they can't get to work or they can't take their kids to school, people put everybody else's lives in jeopardy, and then cause damage to everybody else's property. These are serious crimes that are going on.
And a couple other things we want to talk about in the 2 minutes that we have remaining. One, there was I noticed on Elgin's Facebook page for the police that you guys are doing some recruiting efforts.
Yes.
And
you heard about that? Huh?
I guess that raised some questions as well, right? What are you setting up like a Latin foundation in Puerto Rico, like the Cubs have the minor league facility? And
negative.
No.
What we are doing.
Please set this straight.
Well, yeah, and it's a hot topic, and these are actually, City Manager Stiegel hit it on the head. These are the discussions that should be taking place to find out how far police should go to for attempts. The council has a goal, a strategic goal of a diverse workforce, and how far do we want to go to get there. One of the things that we're doing within the police department, this is our largest recruiting effort probably that we've ever had. When you test for a police officer, especially in Elgin, you don't need to do a whole lot. You can put an announcement in the paper, and word of mouth will spread, and we'll get enough people to take the test to have a list for police officers. And we get great candidates. We get, like everything, you get some great candidates, some people who aren't maybe cut out to be a police officer. So
do you have a general rule for how many candidates you want for each position?
No, we try to staff the list. Generally, our lists are somewhere around 20, just because of the way the process works. We take the top 50 and then dwindle it down from their background checks, interviews, medical, physical fitness. All these things come into play, and then the final list is they have to be above a certain score. So the lists that we generally have are around 20. And so... And we don't want to take a whole lot more than that, because you don't want to take everybody that passes the test, right? So you want to take kind of the best of the best. What we've been doing this year, we have a recruiting team set up. Very proud of the officers that have put this together. We probably have about 15 officers that are working on our recruiting efforts. And we said, let's push on this. And so we've got, like you said, we have officers down offering the test in Puerto Rico. We have another officer that set up us having being part of a testing process now that allows people to take the test in other states. They don't have to come to Elgin to take the test. They can take the test in, I keep saying Arizona. I hope it's one of the 13 states, but I know it's mostly out on the West Coast. Or
it's
West
one of the 50
Coast
for sure, I know.
It's definitely one of the 50, yes. And so they can take the test there. And then remotely now, through online, an online application, but then they have to go to a testing center. So we're offering that. We've really pushed the idea of veterans. It was the police department who put together a proposal, and the city council passed, that we've had a bachelor's degree for a long time. And we pushed and said, you know what, we want returning veterans that have active duty to be able to come back and be a police officer in their community.
And have that substitute
some
education.
Exactly. We also recommend that current police officers be able to do this as well. So we're doing a very wide recruit, I'm overusing this phrase, I've been saying it a lot lately. It's just a very wide net. We're asking everyone to come out and take the test. We have what we're calling is a very inclusive process. So we're going places we haven't been. We have officers, at least as of Wednesday, that we're in the Quad Cities doing recruitment. So we're going to a lot of places. We're in Chicago all the time. We're at a Veterans Fair. I got to do a shout out to Doc Sheehan from the VFW, who was able to put an email blast out to Illinois and all the surrounding states for any returning veteran who wants to be a police officer, come to Elgin. So we're putting it out there to everyone. One of those places is Puerto Rico. That stirred up, why are we going that far? It's a great discussion, and the council's had a discussion. The city manager is involved in that, and at the end of this, it may be successful. But the pool of candidates from the Puerto Rico get pooled with the pool of candidates from Quad Cities, which gets pooled with the candidates from Arizona, which gets pooled with the candidates from Chicago. We're looking for the best. At the end, you got to score, you got to be able to interview well, and you got to make it to a certain point, and then you get offered the job. So just because we're asking a lot more people to take the test, that's all we're doing. There's no preferential treatment for other people. It's here, come take this test. If you test well, then we'll move forward. But at the end, if people if some of the community are speaking out, and like I said, I've had a conversation with the city manager. They may say, we're not going to go that far. We want recruiting efforts to stay in Illinois, and I call those conversations, I have them all the time in the police department, they're called 10-4 conversations. Your only response is 10-4. Message received. So it's a great conversation. Do we want to just stay in the Fox Valley? Do we want to stay in Illinois? Do we want to stay in the Midwest? So we'll see how this goes, if it's successful. Some people have thrown out, well, if it's not successful, what a waste that will be. And I'm very proud to be in an organization. We take a lot, we do a lot of new and creative things. A lot of them don't, they don't bear fruit. But we take that on as, the fact that we're trying new things. There are plenty of organizations around, police organizations and other, that status quo is a great day. Yeah. Chief comes in, is anything going on? No, good. Right. Okay, I'll be in my office. Right. I don't like to operate like that.
I'll be on site.
Yeah, we're trying new things. We're always trying new things. So I'm excited about that. We'll see how this works out. But it's caused a lot of debate. I think great conversations to have, and I like having those conversations. And we'll see how it turns out at the end. So, but the biggest point is anybody that even knows anybody who wants to be a police officer, they have, just go to our website, we have everything on there. But the big thing is not just people who went through college to, people say all the time, I didn't go to school for criminal justice. You don't have to.
That's great.
We're looking for people looking for a career change. You might have been in sales and you're tired of sales. You always thought you wanted to be a police officer. Now's the time to do it. If you're a veteran or a police officer, or you have a bachelor's degree in anything, come and take the test. Come and do an orientation. You can learn a lot about the police department and what we're doing, and it's a great department to work for. So you have a couple more weeks to put your application online, and then we test sometime. I think it's here at the end of October. So it's a great career. I love it. Love every day of it, and it's welcome everyone to kind of take the test and come be a part of the Elgin Police Department.
Last thing I wanted to touch on, we're way over, so real quick, just Saturday, tomorrow, the biannual National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. It's from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. I know you guys are taking part in that. at the Elgin Police Department. Can you kind of just real quick just go over what is accepted and what is not?
Yeah, just no liquids. Any of your old pills, from old aspirin to old, unfortunately sometimes people have passed away and their loved ones still have a lot of the medication that's left. They don't know what to do. The last thing we want people to do is flush anything down the toilet. So just bring it into the police department. We have a container set up. We just don't accept liquids and we don't accept needles.
And these are prescription drugs. It's not any unused or, hey, I've turned a new leaf and I'm no longer smoking marijuana, so I'm going to bring it into the police department.
We don't want that.
We don't want
that either. However, if somebody did have unused marijuana that they found or something, rather than just leave it laying around and turn over a new leaf. Yeah. But generally speaking, yes, these are legal drugs, but they're prescription drugs and they're only supposed to be in certain people's hands. But stop down, drop them off, and then we just talked about, before we went on air, needles. Waste management, if you have some, most people probably know this, but if you have needles that you needed for some type of medication at your house, Waste Management will drop off a bucket for you to fill up with needles, and then they will, once it's full, they pick it up that way. So that's how you get rid of needles. We don't accept needles at the police department.
I didn't even think about asking this, but I've got friends that are diabetic and they have needles. I mean, they must be able to get rid of them somehow. I should probably, because my wife runs a daycare and she has some unused EpiPens that were out of date now and can't be used, and she doesn't know how to get rid of them. So
yeah, that's the big one. Waste management, and I think sometimes the doctor's offices that they go to, but generally speaking, that's probably the best.
Great. Well, have a great weekend. Have a safe one. Enjoy your party, your dinner.
Big party.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big party. But no, thank you very much. A lot of stuff going on, and I think we covered some of the big things, and you guys have a great weekend as well.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for coming in.
You listen to AM 1410, WRMN.
And Elgin.